Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Wrestling Republic podcast. We are live here today. We have a few-week hiatus, but we are back, and we've got a lot of news to get into. There was a new AEW TV deal announced yesterday. It was a change to the original deal, but yeah, we'll be getting into that. NXT firings. Will Osprey has vacated his IWGP World Heavyweight Championship, and of course, we have to get into Backlash and everything that came from that. So I'll introduce everybody first. We are joined, as always, by the man who was trained by Finn Balor, who once shared a pint with Keith Lee, and most impressively, and he didn't ever mention this to me until the other day. The man who once had a match behind closed doors with Becky Lynch, Carl Kinahan. How are you today, Carl?
Very good, geez. Very stressful. I had to get the points in there now, so I was a bit rushed down the place, but I'm good. And the Becky Lynch there, I won the match, so we can't say anything to ruin a reputation, you know?
Yeah. Oh my gosh, right. And I'm also joined by the NXT UK viewer and the Impact reviewer for the Wrestling Republic, King Kota. How are you today, Kota?
Man, I'm good. I can't say I beat Becky Lynch, but I'm good.
Well, then, get into, first of all, the news yesterday that certain names were released from the NXT brand and on-screen roles in general from that brand. The first name that was released was Drake Wuertz, I think say his name. He was, of course, the highly controversial NXT referee for some of his viewpoints. Sean Rossap of Fightful.com reported last night that he actually walked out of a meeting when it was mentioned that when Triple H did a speech basically about equality, and as soon as he mentioned the word that we're equal to all religions, he walked out allegedly. And of course, that did not go down with few members of the NXT locker room, including Ezra Judge, who also got released yesterday, and they apparently almost had an altercation backstage. And it's not known if that was why he was released or anything like that. Why Ezra Judge was released. It's almost definitely a reason why Drake was released. But yeah, sadly, though, those weren't the only two names. The other referee, Jake Clemens, was also released, along with Alexander Wolf, Skylar Story, Kavita Devi, Jessamine Duke, who's, of course, one of the MMA Four Horsewomen, and Vanessa Bourne. And, of course, Vanessa Bourne was actually on the main roster, but just not used ever. She was called up, and she never even made her debut on the main roster. And, of course, Skylar Story, or as most people know her, Brandy Lauren, she literally only signed 4 months ago. She was training in the Performance Center. As far as I know, there was no issues there. I know she was good friends with a lot of people there, so I don't exactly know why the decision was made to release her, but she's gone as well. And the most shocking one, though, as I previously mentioned, Alexander Wolf, who on the previous night's edition of NXT got beaten up and betrayed basically by Imperium, and many people thought that this was going to be leading to a Walter versus Wolf match. Of course, Kota, you review NXT UK. What are your thoughts on all of this?
So, I do think that Alexander Wolf had a ceiling. But out of all the names that were listed, I could have expected everybody else, except maybe Skylar Story, considering that she hadn't really been given a chance. But Alexander Wolf really surprised me. And I thought that they were going to go somewhere with the fact that Killian and him used to be Insanity. I wasn't sure if they would drag it all the way to War Games, but I thought that they could have done something like Team Ciampa versus Team Imperium, and Alexander Wolf was on Team Ciampa. And I don't know where this is going to go now. I could see Thatcher joining Imperium and taking Wolf's place, but Wolf getting released, it almost felt like it came out of nowhere because he was having pretty decent success. I mean, he wasn't a champion or anything, but it wasn't expected. Everybody else on the list, especially Drake, totally expected or not shocked by.
Yeah, I mean, it really did not surprise many people, including myself, that some of those names, and especially the likes of Jessamine Duke, who apparently had no intention to wrestle anymore and just wanted to essentially be a backstage role, not backstage role, like a video game essentially role for up, down, down, which of course is what she's doing here. And Val, our NXT reviewer, wants to be led in the podcast. Who am I saying now? I'll send him a link, see if he joins. But yeah, are you surprised by any of these, Carl? Do you think that WWE made the wrong decision with any of these, or do you reckon this would needed to be done? What was your thoughts on this?
95% of them, absolutely. But as Dakota said, I was surprised by Wolf, especially he obviously knew he was going like the night before as well. So just the shockness of Wolf going. I think Wolf had a lot of potential there, especially with Killian Dane. I would have like to see that dragged out, even the War Games, because something different for War Games as well with because every year eras in them, so it'd be something different as well. But I don't know. I think they might miss the boat by letting Wolf go because he's very talented, very talented.
Yeah, and of course he is going to be having a lot of bookings now. A lot of people are going to be interested in him, and of course he actually put out last night that he was going to be, he was going to take some time to think about it. His contract, his 30 days or whatever, expires June 16th, which gives him a bit. I just realized I didn't change later. Which gives him a little bit of time to look at different options for himself. Of course, do you reckon he'd be good at an AEW, or do you reckon that perhaps some people have suggested actually going to Impact Wrestling and joining Eric Young's faction? What do you think about that, Kota?
I think that he's a very good wrestler, and if he was to go to Impact, I do think that he'd fit well there. I think that he would 1000% get lost in AEW, considering all the talent that I think are better than him. So I see him going back to the UK. I don't know where he would go. Probably just the Indies. I don't see him staying in the United States. I could be wrong, and since I watch Impact every week, I would enjoy watching him. But I would lean more towards seeing him go back to the UK and do Indies, whether that be WXW or anything of that such.
Yeah, of course, I'm going back to Germany and doing WXW. I think is highly likely, and that would be great as well. And down the line, the deal WWE have with them, we might even be able to see Walt versus Will anyway. And Lego Collectors have said, "Hey guys, hello, thank you for joining us today." And yeah, I mean, the one which actually surprised me the most was simply Brandy Lauren, or as she was known in WWE, Skylar Story. Because she had so much momentum into signing with WWE. And of course, she was doing successful. Her Patreon was doing really successful right before she joined, and she ended all that to come to the WWE. She had tons of momentum behind her, seemed to get along with everyone. I know Shotzi Blackheart did an Instagram post last night saying like bye to her and everything. And maybe there was backstage heat with her, but I'd be highly surprised based on what we know. So I don't know why that happens. It's going to be interesting to see where she goes from here now, because AEW's unlikely after considering Joey Janela's there. But who knows? I'd like her in AEW. Maybe Impact. Maybe we're going to see her as, what was it? Ava Story, I believe her name was, in Impact. Because yeah, she was there a couple of years ago for quite a while. But then moving on now, guys, AEW's new TV deal. And last night, an announcement came out of nowhere. I wasn't expecting it. And oh, Val has joined. How are you, Val?
Hey.
Finally, I'm in a podcast. Hi, guys.
You're right, Val. Oh, gosh. Right, yeah. So last night, announcement came out of nowhere. I wasn't ready for it. In fact, my dinner was on the table ready when this news came out, and I had to go and write an article. They choose their times, don't AEW. But anyway, the news coming out of it, all of it, was that AEW Dynamite will be moving to TBS in 2022. And the reason for this is indeed because of the NHL. That will be because they'd be moved quite a bit. it's just easier for them to be consecutively every week, Wednesday, 8 p.m. Eastern. So that is the approach which they've decided to take. They're moving the show over to TBS in 2022. Now, a lot of people have been asking, is this good for their viewership? Is this bad for their viewership? So on average, TBS had 71,000 less views last year. But, and this is just an average figure, but it's in homes. So, I mean, you can argue either way whether or not it's a good or a bad deal in that element. But overall, it's a fantastic deal for AEW because they are being paid apparently nearly 10 million more for it, according to Dave Meltzer. And that's cost huge money. And they'll be doing quarterly specials on TNT still. So essentially, they'll be having 8 pay-per-view like events a year now, 4 actual pay-per-views, and then 4 specials on TNT. And they'll be taking place on Saturdays, those as well. So it's not going to be like, an episode of Dynamite's a special. Well, they'll still do them, I'm sure, but not like not what the TNT thing is going to be. That's going to be another separate day. And another note is the new weekly show, AEW Rampage, is going to be coming on air live later this year in August, and will start on TNT and then switch over to TBS when Dynamite moves over to TBS. And the reason for this is they want to keep everything essentially streamlined and everything, so fans aren't confused. They know where to find AEW, and I think this is a fantastic move for the company. What do you think, Kota?
It seems like a good move. As of right now, I think that it sounds good. A second show, considering all the talent that they have, I think that a second show is pretty necessary. I don't know if they're going to. They probably won't do like separate brands how WWE does. Thank you, Pierce. I appreciate that. I think that I just think it's good for the talent because they have 2 hours and there's tons of talent that aren't being used weekly. I can't even remember the last time that I saw. I mean, I'm probably wrong here, but Jungle Boy and Luchasaurus. I can't remember the last time I saw them on TV. I just feel like the talent doesn't get enough airtime. And this could help the women too a lot because last night was one of the first nights where they've used 2 women's matches, and one of them was still a squash match. So if they now have 3 hours of TV, they can get maybe 2, 3, 4 matches for the women every single week, and even grow that division even more. I just hope that there's no squash matches or very little, as opposed to like Elevation and Dark. So, but the deal sounds good for them. And 10 p.m., I'm sure there are a lot of people who will go straight from Smackdown to Rampage. So I think that's a good idea.
Yeah, and of course, so they'll be hoping people will switch over right from the end of Smackdown, right to Rampage, have a full night of wrestling, and that if it works, that should be good for them. Now, when AEW ran at 10 p.m. before, their viewership has been slightly down, but still, it's been good. So I don't think that's a huge concern from them. So I'm going to go quickly and say what I've heard about this. But I do just want to quickly point out first that Dave Meltzer today has said that Rampage has said the opposite to basically what I'm about to say, and he said after it. But basically, what I heard is Rampage, Dynamite's going to be taped. Oh, am I breaking up for you guys?
A little bit.
Oh, gosh.
Oh, but not too bad.
Okay. Val's just dropped out. But yeah, basically, what I've heard is Rampage, Dynamite's been taped every Wednesday, same as normal. With that, they're going to be taping about an hour or so of Dark. Then on the Fridays, they're going to be taping Rampage with Elevation before that, which is going to be an hour show, and it's going to be taken maybe a bit more seriously than it is now. Although even now, it's taken a lot more seriously than Dark, and there are some great matches on that. But so they'll be doing that, and then about half an hour of Dark as well as a literal Dark match, right? At the end or in the middle somewhere with the big stars in, just, keep fans there. Because I presume that Rampage would be live at 10. So I believe they do everything first and have Rampage at the end. But, yeah, we're not certain about all of that yet. But Dave Meltzer's reporting today that it will be taped most weeks during Dynamite. So you'd have, 3 hours taping. But firstly, that would mean that the taping overall would be like 5 hours, including Dark and Dark Elevation. And I don't know if anybody wants to stay for 5 hours watching AEW, which is why I'm kind of edging to what I've heard slightly more, even though obviously Dave, I'm not being funny, but he knows the guy, so he probably is correct. But it just makes little to no sense about this. But what are your thoughts on it all, Carl?
I think moving to network is a smart decision, especially for the days as well, because the key factor to any successful TV show is consistency, and it's hard to keep a core audience if one day on a Wednesday. And I think they're actually on Friday next week instead of Wednesday, aren't they? So it's just that's their go home show. A lot of people would miss their go home show because to be unaware of the change, although they do try their best to let people know. But I don't know. I think AEW has too much content. I think they have Elevation, Dark, and Dynamite, and now Rampage on a Friday. That's nearly 9 hours of content a week, plus being the Elite as well. I think you're better off just having one good, consistent show than having so many hours of television. Like I do see the benefits of having so many hours, but then as a viewer, I'm personally not going to watch every show I can because there's too much wrestling out there, you know.
Yeah, I understand what you mean completely there. And I don't. There's going to be a lot of wrestling to watch now. But even, here's the thing. If maybe they ran a smaller venue for Rampage every week, right? I believe they could do it. I do. I think that's a much better approach to the one there. If they are taking it with Dynamite, that's just going to be hell for people watching. It's going to be, presumably Dark will go back to 40 minutes, right? Then Elevation is probably another 40 minutes, right? So that's an hour 20. Add on Rampage, 2 hours 20. Add on Dynamite, 4 hours 20. Now, that is actually about the same size as a Raw taping, give or take. So that's not the end of the world, I guess. But on Raw, the fans are dead by the end of it. So, I mean, I wouldn't be, you know, I'm not. I hope that they do indeed tape it on different days. And somebody said here, watch WWE make SmackDown 3 hours now to compete with them.
Definitely.
I could see that.
Definitely see it. Like no question. It's already done. It's already done.
I hope that's not true. I really, that is the case. I doubt this as well because Fox would have to pay more for that. And here's some news from today. According to WrestleVotes, they're not too happy that WWE haven't returned yet. They're trying to arenas yet, so they're trying to, you know, get them to return. So also that probably means that when we return in the next month or so to live shows, I reckon I think there's a high chance Hell in the Cell's gonna be the last Thunderdome pay-per-view, and then after that they'll be turning into live events again. But
I can see that.
That's the other thing we've missed while we've been gone. WWE, of course, returning in August. Well, they're meant to be returning in August, but they're going to be doing a tester weekend in July, and that weekend would likely include a Raw, SmackDown, and the Money in the Bank pay-per-view. But again, this Fox News reported by WrestleVotes yesterday could shake all of that up completely. So we'll just have to wait and see what they do there. Now, the next thing that I wanted to quickly get onto is, of course, earlier this morning, Will Osprey was... sorry, actually, before we get on that, one thing. What do you guys think of the show named Rampage?
I think it's fun. It's nice.
Yeah. So, yeah, it's decent. Like, there's so many wrestling shows, it's hard to come up with a name that actually stands out. So as long as it's not bad, I think it's okay, you know?
Yeah, no, I agree. I agree completely there. But I don't know. It just reminds me of NXT UK Wrestler Rampage as well. But anyway, let's move on now. Earlier this morning, we got the sad news that Will Osprey has had to vacate his IWGP World Heavyweight Championship, which of course he won against Kota Ibushi in a fantastic match and defended against Shingo Takagi in a fantastic match, which of course ended up causing the injury. And he's essentially suffered a neck injury, and because of that, he's had to vacate the title. And it's sad news, it really is. New Japan haven't commented on what's going to happen with the title now, but they have stated that Will Ospreay will be going home to the UK to rehab, to get better, and you know, hopefully come back healthy soon and get back Cortez, Kota. What would you like to see them do with the vacated championship? What would you like to see them? What approach would you like to see them take to crown a new champion?
I'm not really sure. I don't know the answer to that. I do know the answer to who I think that they should put the title on, which is Okada. As long as he's healthy, because I believe he was one of the ones that had COVID. I'm not 100% sure on that. And I know that he was dealing with another injury before that. But considering that he's one of the best world champions in New Japan history, at least in my opinion, I think that it's a very safe option. I think in a situation like this, they shouldn't. I think that Shingo could be world champion, but I think that Okada is safer to go with. In terms of what they should do, I wouldn't. They'll probably crown the champion at Dominion, and I don't know how they would figure out. Maybe like a 4-person tournament or something like that. I'm not. There's a few things that they could do there. I'm not. I don't really have a strong opinion on what they should do.
I just took an entire glass of water down the wrong way. Oh gosh. I think I'm not sure if I'm muting my mic in time then. But anyway, I agree. I think that Okada should be who they put it on because Shingo would be fantastic. But he's lost now the New Japan Cup final and his title opportunity. So I can't really see that happening. Somebody's said here on our past point, my thing is, why not put Rampage on TBS and Dynamite on TNT? Okay, so basically, the reason behind this is that Rampage and Dynamite are both going to be on TNT until 2022. Then at that point, both shows are going to switch over to TBS, and it is simply so they don't get moved every week. Because with the NHL coming to TNT next year as well, they're just going to be getting moved practically every week, and they're going to lose viewership because of it. And so that decision was made there. Now back to the championship situation. Yeah, I think Okada's going to be who they're going to go with. I think it's somebody's pointed out here that TBS is available in a few million more households than TNT. But I think Okada's going to be crowned the next champion. But how they do it, not the simple answer, but one strategy they could go down is to use the G1 to crown a new champion. Now, the issue with that is the Olympics is taking place in Japan in the summer, so the G1 is being moved to September-October again, and that's going to be a bit difficult for them to wait that long without a champion. Now, what they could do is do a tournament of perhaps 4 to 8 people, right? Then have a couple of those matches on a Dominion, have a couple of them on a Summer Struggle, which has been announced for July. And then, presuming Wrestle Grand Slam takes place in August, you could have the new champion, crowned there. What are your thoughts, Carl? What do you think they should do?
Before you made that point there, I was just thinking about, right, what am I going to say now? But I think that is actually a very, very good idea on your behalf. Because everybody's kind of lost. Osprey has been the only one that's been winning consistently. And Okada's had a few losses and Shingo's had a few losses. So I think you're spotting the money there with a tournament. Because that way everybody goes in there even playing field. You know that kind of way? It's not favoritism or Okada on the top or Shingo on top. Everybody's even playing field. And it could end up building a new star. So I actually really think that's a great idea. The tournament and maybe have it start at Dominion and maybe end just before the G1 or something.
Yeah.
That's a good stretch hold for the summer.
Yeah, I mean, because the rumor going around, I say rumor, it's a rumor among fans, is that the event will be taking Wrestle Grand Slam, of course, the events which are cancelled due to the COVID outbreak in New Japan, and in general, the COVID restrictions put in place in Japan over the last few weeks. It's rumored that that's going to be moved to August because, of course, Summer Struggle's already announced for July. So if they ended it in August at Wrestle Grand Slam before the G1, that would be perfect. Now, I'm not going to lie. I kind of think that there is a high chance they do just be like, okay, Okada, Shingo, Dominion, new champion, there we are. Which I thought that would be a fantastic match, no doubt about it. But I'd like to see more activity.
I could see Okada against Ibushi, considering that Ibushi was the champion before. and Okada was the one who was going to get the shot. So I could see them doing that.
Yeah, that would be quite good as well, actually. But again, I'd like to see a tournament more. I'd like to see people throw let's say eight competitors, right? Ibushi, Okada, Shingo, 3 of them, right? And then they can make up some rubbish. Maybe you put the Never Openweight. Who is the Never Openweight champion now? Anybody know?
Jay White.
Jay White.
Of course,
Yep.
of course. Oh, yeah, maybe it'd be him actually. Now I'm thinking maybe it will be Jay White, but yeah, you could throw Jay White in there as well. There's a lot of people, you can make up reasons why they're being picked, and you can just have a tournament that goes through the summer, and then ends at Wrestle Grand Slam in August or whatever show takes place in August, and we crown new champion, go into the G1, then somebody wins that, and here's something actually I'd like to see, a quick bit of fantasy booking for myself. I'd like to see, let's say Okada. Let's do this. Okada wins the 8-man tournament at Wrestle Grand Slam, becomes the new IWGP World Heavyweight Champion. Then goes into the G1 September, October. Okada wins the G1. So he is the champion. Not the champion. He is he can choose. If that happens, you can choose who you face. And then I'd like Tokyo Dome in January, presuming he's better by then, Will Osprey versus Kazuchika Okada, which was meant to happen, but of course got cancelled and now completely scrapped because of Osprey's neck injury. I'd love to see that happen. And also, we haven't seen the champion within G1 in years. So I think that, that would be an interesting way to do it. What do you guys think about that?
Jeez, I think you're on fire today, Benjamin. That's 2 great ideas. Absolutely love that. It's long-term storytelling. And presumably Osprey would win that match, and that's a lovely poetic justice because Okada beat Osprey at Wrestle this year. He was going to redeem himself this year for the title. Then he got injury, so now he can redeem himself at a big stage again a year later. So love that idea.
Yeah.
Brilliant.
Yeah, I one thing though is what they're going to do with Osprey's faction while he's gone. I have no idea what they're going to do with that, because without Osprey, it's a bit dead. But I mean, maybe during this time, they can elevate it without Osprey in the picture a bit more. But who? So it's Jeff Cobb, Toa Henry. I've completely botched that name, but anybody else know who else? Is there anybody else in it?
Is the Great O'Khan in it?
Oh, that's the one. Great O'Khan. And there's rumor that there's going to be a junior joining. And that's the thing. Best Super Juniors was rumored to be taking place in August. So that might just throw a spanner into everything I've just said. But it's entirely possible they can work it around. And Adri's just sent in a message. Just wanted to plug that the Hana Kimura Memorial Show is on May 23rd. And it'll be available on Fight TV with English commentary. I will definitely be tuning in for that. And yeah, it's tragic who death was, and yeah, I'll definitely be buying that. And hopefully, I presume most of the proceeds are going to the family as well. So yeah, I'm undoubtedly going to be tuning in for that. Now, the next thing I wanted to quickly go on to is Backlash. Now, Backlash was this past Sunday on Peacock, and it was, for the most part, a really good show. You had Sheamus. Actually, that wasn't the name I was thinking of, but Sheamus defeated Ricochet on the pre-show for the United States Championship. I didn't actually see this match, but apparently it was really good. Did anybody see it?
I watched it.
How was it?
Yeah, it was good.
It was definitely enjoyable for the pre-show.
It's kind of like the Humberto Carrillo match.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. It was enjoyable.
Humberto's injured now as well after that match, sadly. But yeah, anyway, then going on to the main show, Drew McIntyre, which is the actual name I was thinking of, took on, try to get his championship back in a match against Bobby Lashley, and of course, Braun Strowman was also in that to make it a triple threat. All 3 men absolutely killed it. Braun's been looking, great as he has been recently. And, of course, in the end, Lashley retained his title still. And that was a fantastic triple threat match. We also had Sasha Banks. Not Sasha Banks. We also had Bianca Belair retaining against Bailey in a really strong matchup. What was your favorite match of the night, Kota?
So I'm a little biased. I love car wreck matches. So the triple threat match, the WWE Championship match, that was my type of thing. Like, it didn't even go 15 minutes. And Strowman is not known for being a technical master, but I honestly think that he looked the best of the three of them in the match. There's one spot where McIntyre hit Strowman with a Michinoku driver. I totally popped for that. I thought that was fantastic. And lastly, pinning Strowman, that was 1000% the right move, considering that I'm pretty sure if it's not Lesnar, that McIntyre is going to be the one to take the title from Lashley once crowds come back. I think that the reason they didn't do it at Mania was to give Lashley more of a long run, and McIntyre maybe more. Once he gets more fans back, he can get more of a reaction, and then maybe take the title off Lashley at SummerSlam. Because I mean, which is cool considering that they always have great matches. But the match itself was awesome. I mean, I almost gave it 5 stars. I loved it.
Yeah, and of course, if they did give if they gave the title to McIntyre at Mania, there might have been some boos as well. So I'm glad that was what they went with, and that's entirely possible. I think he probably will be the one. The other one I'm thinking is maybe Keith Lee, if when he returns from wherever he's been, presuming it's not a backstage issue. But again, we don't know for certain what's happening with that at this time, where he's been. But there's not many people at this moment in time who could. They don't have many faces on Raw. They really don't, who are top faces. They have quite a few top heels. Sheamus, of course, has been great. He was the name who popped into my head when we were just talking about it then. But I don't think it would work, heel versus heel there. Maybe you could slowly turn him face. I could see that working, but I don't really particularly want to see that.
Right now, they have Kofi as a top face.
Yeah.
Kind of.
I think that's just a transitional match. So I think it's another Cesaro-like situation where it's just for the next pay-per-view. Lashley destroys him, and then straight on to the next one after that. But the other results for the show were Rhea Ripley defeated Asuka and Charlotte Flair in a triple threat match for the Raw Women's Championship, and this match was really good from all three women, as you'd expect. And here we are. The next match was potentially match. It wasn't match of the night for me, but it's up there. Rey Mysterio and Dominic Mysterio defeated Dolph Ziggler and Robert Roode in a hell of a tag match. Now, I'm not usually one for these, or the face goes down. The face gets injured before the match. It's 2-on-1, then it's 2-on-2 when the face returns, and then they win because it's overly done. But in this scenario, I thought it worked really, really well, and it was a hell of an emotional moment, even though the storyline build to it wasn't actually that great. So I actually really enjoyed that. What did you think of it, Carl?
I didn't really like this match as much as everybody else did.
Oh.
I mean, the story was good and stuff, but I think it went on. I think the beatdown of Rey Mysterio went on far too long. I think it just seemed dragged, and it kind of took away from the moment for me. Especially, the SmackDown championships have been so damaged, or the tag team division as a whole has been so damaged. I can't really get behind someone wanting to win it. And I understand Rey Mysterio with his son and all, very emotional, but I don't know. I think the match went on too long, and I think if the match was maybe 10, 12 minutes, I would have enjoyed it a lot more, but I think there's unnecessary beating down of Mysterio in there just for the sake of it.
Yeah, no, I do. I understand that point as well. And that was originally my thought on the match. But I just thought, considering the lack of build for the story, that angle actually built up, especially then with Rey not wanting to tag Dominic in, and Dominic tagging himself in anyway. I thought that a lot more emotion and storytelling into the feud than it actually had the entire time of it. What were your thoughts on the match, Kota?
So this is going to be one of those rare times where I disagree with Carl, just like Blood and Guts. I thought that the match was the best tag team match WWE main roster has put on this year so far. I thought that it was very entertaining, and it was a little cliche, the fact that Ray started out the ultimate underdog as he always does, and then his son came out probably about 10 minutes into the match. But I thought that Rey Mysterio looked amazing. Ray and Dolph, I love Robert Roode, but Rey Mysterio and Dolph Ziggler looked amazing in that match. They look like it was like 11 years ago at SummerSlam 2009. I think that I really enjoyed it. Up to that point, I think it was the match of the night for me. I think maybe it was only the second match, but I thought it was great. I really enjoyed it.
Yeah, I agree with you completely there, Kota. Now, before we get more into WrestleMania Backlash, which we will, right? I want to bring up something that you brought up, Kota. Now, of course, anybody who's looked at our website, read our articles on our websites, knows that Carl's honest opinion on Blood and Guts, and his honest opinion was that it was the best attempt at War Games since WCW. And this went down well with some people, but not so good with a lot of others. To the point where I had to clarify that it was Carl's view and not everybody else in the wrestling public's view. That's how much hate we were getting for it. Now, Kota completely disagrees with that, and I believe you called it one of the worst matches of the year. So I want to know quickly, Kota, before we ask Carl, but we'll bring him in then. What are your thoughts, right? What were your thoughts on Blood and Guts, and why did you not like it?
Oh man, exactly what Aaron said. I totally disagree. So the cage itself, Chris Jericho said that part of the reason he got hurt was because he fell between the cage and the ring. The cage itself looked extremely cheap. That I think that hurt the cage a little bit. The fact that they could go outside of the ring completely destroyed the idea of War Games. Because if you can go outside of the ring with no consequences, why not just leave the ring and go brawl backstage? That was one of my main issues. It started out really, really good. I forgot who were the first two. I think Guevara was one of them. But it started out like really good. Like the first 3 to 5 minutes were fantastic. But once Jericho got in there, I just feel like everything kind of fell apart, and there were a lot of botches in the match. Toward the end, I don't have a problem with Jericho's fall. He's 50 years old. He's about 50 years old. If he wants to take a safe bump, I was one of the only people that probably didn't have a problem with it, didn't make fun of him for it. I think it was fine, but the ending was super anticlimactic to me, and I could have been the only one. I just feel like them trading the submissions on the top of the steel cage. Yeah, Harlan Guevara, those were the two that started. I feel like it was a little it wasn't done right. I was extremely disappointed. I went in with high expectations, especially considering the FTR and PNP were both in the match, and those are two of the best teams in the world. So I'm hoping Stadium Stampede is better, but I hope that there's not that much comedy in there.
Yeah, and from the way they've advertised the match so far, I'm hoping, I agree completely. I don't think there will be comedy in it. Well, at least not much of it, if any. There'll probably be some bubbly something in it. But, Carl, right, going on to you now. What are your thoughts on what Kota said about the match?
Okay, to a certain extent, I completely agree with what Cota's saying, to a certain extent. But my point was, NXT's War Games is more enjoyable. We'll say that. But I think AEW did War Games better in terms of the no surrender rule, the rules in play, and the cage, Where I think NXT doesn't do War Games, they do their version of War Games, where I think AEW did War Games better to a complete standpoint, if that makes sense. And I will admit, the thing that did kind of take me out of the match was when people went into the cage didn't look sturdy. And that does take you out of it a bit. But I think AEW did War Games itself better, but NXT doesn't do War Games. It has its own version of War Games.
But so my question though is, right, so you're saying you're saying they do it more like the original, right?
Yeah.
So would you say that NXT's version of War Games is better than the original then?
I'd say it suits their style a lot more. Where I don't think NXT would get away with all the blood and stuff. Their NXT's more high-paced, fast-paced matches. high risk maneuvers. So I think NXT were very smart where they put war games that would suit the individuals they had, where AEW kind of had like the likes of Jericho and FTR who were old school wrestlers who like the blood, the guts, and stuff like that. Like, funny name of the pay per view, but you know what I mean? They kind of like that grittiness of wrestling, where I
Yeah.
don't think NXT would get away with doing blood and guts properly because they can't have that much blood, you know what I mean? Like it's not their fault, but I think they definitely did it to suit their style more. And if you're a fan of NXT, you'll enjoy more war games, but it just depends on your taste of wrestling, really, isn't it?
Yeah, so you're saying essentially that the NXT version, right, if NXT were allowed blood, should they do it the way AEW did it, or the way they currently do it?
That's a great question. I don't know. I think people have gotten used to NXT's style, you know? That it'd be weird now for them to automatically change it, you know, just because they're allowed blood. I think people, as I clearly seen in my DMs when I put an honest opinion, people clearly love the NXT version of War Games. I think it'd be unfair to the majority of the fan base that do enjoy NXT War Games, but maybe add a little bit of blood. And my one criticism about NXT War Games, I hate it every time. Well, there's two. One time, I hate the way it's always Undisputed Era around November. Hate that. And at the last time, right, they always bring in tables, chairs, and things when the last person there. That makes no sense. Like every time they always bring in weapons to help them. Just use the cage. The cage is the weapon. Like you're not gonna have a steel cage match and then bring in the sledgehammers and stuff in a steel cage. Use the cage as a weapon and be more creative rather than getting tables and ladders for the big spots. Which that's why one thing I do credit AEW. They just used the cage with a chair and stuff. They didn't really go over the top with the weapon, you know?
Yeah, and that's exactly what Jim Cornette actually said about when he was talking about War Games. But he also added that he didn't like it when Chris Jericho brought the bat in, which of course that made sense, but then he started using it to strangle. Like, why using a bat to strangle? But that was the one thing I actually didn't like. For once, I agree with Jim Cornette on something. Never thought that day would come. But Kota, let me ask you this, right? Do you think AEW made a mistake trying to be more like the old, more traditional WCW style War Games over going potentially a more modern approach like NXT do? Now, I'm not talking about the blood as such. I'm talking about the overall match layout. What are your thoughts on that?
So I think that they should have. I don't think that they should have copied NXT at all. I think that they should maybe. The thing is that they did do it in their own way. Like it didn't feel like WCW's. I've seen most of WCW's War Games matches. I think those are probably the best War Games matches there are, except for the 2020 War Games match. I was a really big fan of, but I think that they tried to do it. I just don't think it worked. I don't know. It felt weird, and it also felt weird that it wasn't on a pay-per-view for me.
Yeah.
So I think that might have been part of the problem, and it would just like I knew when the match was going to end, more or less. I knew there was going to end in that final like 7-minute period. So I think that was maybe if you had different teams, and maybe if Chris Jericho, who's like 50 years old, wasn't in it, maybe it would have been a little bit better. Yeah, I agree with that. The match was fine, but I don't even think the match was fine personally. I just didn't enjoy it at all. But I think that they could use this and figure out what they need to do different next time. So I don't think it was a mistake. I just think that they need to grow next time.
Yeah. And the reason it wasn't on the pay-per-view, right? A couple of reasons. But secondly, the 2-ring situation. Essentially, I don't think they want a pay-per-view to have 2 rings the entire night. Now, I reckon maybe next year this will be a TNT special, perhaps one of the 4-day quarterly specials there, and I think that would work well. And like you said, you knew when it was going to end. You might have to correct me on this, Kota, but I heard someone say that during the match, one of the breaks was in picture-in-picture for you guys in America. Is that true?
I believe that we had full commercial, but I could be wrong. It could have been picture. I know that we definitely had at least picture-in-picture, if not full commercials. We had at least two. We had at least 2 commercials during it, and they both might have been picture-in-picture. I'm not sure.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
I just remember coming back from the break, and part of the ring was taken apart and something else.
Oh, so there wasn't picture in picture for some of it.
I don't. It was too long ago. I don't think there was, but I could be wrong.
Okay, yeah. I think it was Dave Meltzer who noted that he didn't think there was at one point or something. But of course, in the UK on Fight TV, we had it all. So we didn't like. Of course, they say, "Oh, we're going to the break now," but it's still like you can see everything. There's no adverts, so we didn't actually miss any of the vital things on that part, like you guys did. Now, that's the other thing. When I was reviewing the match, I was reviewing it from what I saw. Right, the fact that during the break, Jericho and MJF escaped the cage, and it was only tiny on the screen and stuff for you guys. That is not on, and of course, I didn't know that until afterwards. But that's. They shouldn't be commercials for the match at all. Like they should work something out with TNT if they do this again, where there's no commercials, because that ruined the match completely. And I mean, I don't know how they could get away with having no commercials at all for an hour, but I'm sure they could find a way, right? Even if it cost them a bit of money, because it would bring in, if they do this properly, it would bring in so many new fans. And I hope they do try again next year, and I hope it's more successful next year. Now, another disaster. Not disaster, but okay. I actually enjoyed I actually enjoyed it, but another disaster for Kota, I guess. And I did. None of us enjoyed this disaster. I'll tell you that much. Damian Priest defeated the Miz with John Morrison in a lumberjack match. Where the lumberjacks were zombies. It was awful. It was absolutely awful. They said on commentary right before the match that these zombies, they're just here to promote the Army of the Dead film or whatever it is. And then a second later, the commentary team are running away scared for their lives. I despise this match. And now Miz might be out for nearly a year because of an injury that he suffered, because they weren't focusing, essentially during the match. Damian Priest botched that to dive off the top rope. There was just too much going on, and that's when mistakes happen. I hated it. What did you think, Kota?
Man, the zombies were backstage. I was with my friend and my dad. We were both watching my room, and the zombies came on, and my dad was like, "There's no way that the zombies are going to be the lumberjacks." And then they appeared twice, and I was like, "Dad, I think that they're going to be." And he was in denial till the very second that the zombies appeared. And then it just became good old hell. That was not. That was terrible. That was so bad. And I mean, the action in the ring, it wasn't even very good, and obviously it wasn't safe, because Miz tore his ACL. I don't know if it's a partial tear or a full tear. R-Truth would have pulled it off a little bit better. I feel bad for Priest and Miz, honestly. The feud went from being pretty decent going into Mania to probably one of the worst feuds in WWE this year. Like, I feel so bad for both of them. They both deserve better. And hopefully Priest doesn't get punished for... I mean, it was his fault, but there's just so much going on. I can't fully blame Priest for this. I hope that it doesn't affect his push or anything. I don't think it will, considering that he still beat Morrison in a really good lumberjack match on Monday Night Raw. Probably one of the best lumberjack matches I've ever seen. I wish they had that on the pay-per-view. But, yeah, that was just... It was abysmal. I hated it so much.
Yeah, and... What were your thoughts on it, Carl? Did you actually believe your thoughts were it wasn't as bad as people made out?
I thought this was the best match in the card, actually. No, I think I don't know. I was in line of thinking it was more for kids, but I think I just being too optimistic. This was terrible. Like, geez. The fact they believed it was zombies, like they believed it was zombies. You're telling me you have someone like Roman Reigns, the most believable character in modern wrestling, probably, and then an hour later, I'm looking at zombies eating Miz. And the fact a man risked his knee. Miz has never been injured in 20 years of wrestling, and for some reason in a bleeding zombies match, he's out for the whole year. Sorry for the guy as well, like. Jesus.
All I'm saying is, right, imagine Miz will hopefully be fine, right? Otherwise, this is an awful joke. But imagine if someone's career got ended and their last match was a zombies match. Their career would be done. Then it would be looked back on. Like you look back on Shibata, right? Every time you mention the name Shibata to me, I think about the match with Okada. And of course, it was tragic what happened in it, but it was such a good match, right? If it was a zombies match, it wouldn't be it's just no. Oh my gosh, I thought it was disgraceful. I really did. And people are comparing it to The Undertaker. Well, the entire thing behind that is it's suspending disbelief. like The Undertaker, right? The entire time, for the most part, there was a few times throughout this career there was no explanation, right? But that was back in the 90s, okay? It was a different era then. But apart from that, every time that he's done something, he's been buried alive and survived, or something like that. There's been some logical explanation for it, right? And it's called suspending disbelief, right? They did it in the Boneyard match with AJ Styles. I praised this at the time, that when he pointed and all things went off, he could have set them up there earlier on in the day, right? And then AJ Styles got scared for a minute or whatever, thought that, oh my gosh, maybe he does have powers after all. And stuff like that. That's when it's done well. But in this case, if it was just Miz and Morrison believing it, the zombies were real, that would be one thing, right? I still wouldn't be that happy with it, but they made Miz and Morrison look like idiots enough. It wouldn't be surprising. But the fact that they got Damian Priest to believe they were real as well, and the commentary team who just said they were here to promote the movie, it's just awful. It's I won't say it's ruined Priest for me, but it's made him look a lot less like a badass. It really has. And so, somebody said, Val said here that he's happy that Morrison and Priest had another lumberjack match the next night on Raw, which was good. That made up for it a little bit. I didn't actually see that match. I don't put myself through Raw, but but let's move on to the next match then. And that was Bianca Belair defeating Bayley for the SmackDown Women's Championship. This was a solid match, as you would expect from the two. This was actually one of my favorite matches of the night. I'm loving Bianca Belair. She's fantastic in the ring. Then we'll move on now to the main event. And this match was actually, I was saying this match would be as you expected. It was not. I expected, Cesaro to, be doing a lot of swings and all that. A bit of a few big spots during the match. There was no big spot during the match, right? But it was a fantastic match, nevertheless. And I actually believe that the fact that they didn't do any, big spots, whatever, kind of actually improved it a little bit. Because they didn't make Roman look weak at all, like if they did the swing, in fairness, right? So I understand why they didn't do that. Cesaro selling that everybody coming out of the match thought his arm was injured. That's how great his selling was. It was just top level stuff. What do you think about the match, Carl?
I love the match. That was absolutely fantastic. And my favorite, this about Roman matches as a whole, every match his character progresses. And what the key factor in this match was Cesaro's arm. And the most amazing thing is that Roman targeted the arm because that's what Bryan did to him. And he was targeting the arm because remember in their last SmackDown match, Bryan was working on Roman's arm to stop the guillotine. So then Roman's working on Cesaro's arm to stop the uppercuts. And that is so impressive. And he would think he called out DB as well, which I think that's amazing.
Yeah.
And the overall match is fantastic. Made Cesaro look like a star. Absolute star.
Yeah, he did. And
I think Rollins.
Sorry, carry on.
No, work away.
Carry on, sorry. Okay.
You go, son. You go,
right,
son.
Okay. Cesaro. Okay. So apparently Cesaro's done now in the main event feud, which is disappointing. As I would have liked to, seen. And that's the thing. Roman Reigns won clean as well, so it's not going to be extended. They could have maybe taken this on to Hell in a Cell, but no, they want to do something else with Roman now. But yeah, it was very enjoyable, the match. Cesaro he had his main event moment. I hope that he gets another chance in the future. That's what I will say. But now he's going to move on with his feud with Seth Rollins. And I don't know exactly. And this is one thing, actually. At the end of the event, of course, Seth Rollins attacked Cesaro. Now, apparently, that ending was just added on to the end because it seemed like a SmackDown angle. Apparently, that ending was just added on to the end because they didn't think Roman Reigns beating Cesaro would be a good enough ending for a pay-per-view. And originally, the triple threat was going to main event. So I don't know why there was a change, but there was one, and they threw that in last minute. But where do you think they go from here, Kota?
So I actually thought that the triple threat should have main evented. I think that the main event was better, but I think that the triple threat should have main evented. I think the car crash main event is fun. But going from here, I could definitely see Roman going against Jimmy, or Jay going against Jimmy in a Hell in a Cell. I find it strange that Hell in a Cell got moved to June, but I imagine that it has something to do with the fact that Roman faced Jay in a Hell in a Cell in the past.
Yeah,
I think that they're really focusing the entire company on Roman Reigns and his family. So I think that has a lot to do with it. But I could also see Cesaro versus Seth Rollins in a Hell in a Cell match because their feud has actually been really good in my opinion. I think that it's been one of the most enjoyable feuds of the year. But I think that Cesaro got his match. I don't think that he deserves another shot. He doesn't have enough charisma for me to think that he deserves more than one world title match, at least in a year. So I don't have a problem with him being one and done. The match itself was phenomenal, 5 stars off me. But I think that him versus Rollins one more time will probably happen at Hell in a Cell, or maybe SmackDown, and then they'll do maybe 2 more matches, one at SmackDown, one at Hell in a Cell. So that's where I think it'll go. Probably Roman versus Jimmy at Hell in a Cell is my prediction too.
yeah, that's actually what I'm going to go for. That's what I would say. But yeah, I mean, yes, it's very interesting though. To be honest, that they're doing a Hell in a Cell feud with them this early. It's confusing as well as I don't know exactly why they'd have it. Like I don't, because is it going to be that Roman's going to be scared that Jay would get involved and screw him? Is that what they're going to say, or is it vice versa? Or would Jay actually turn on his brother? Who knows? But I would have thought a pay-per-view match between Roman and Jimmy first, with Jay screwing Jimmy, but like being reluctant to screw him, but just have to do it because Roman says, and then Roman getting the victory that way would have worked better. With then the next pay-per-view after that being Hell in a Cell, with then Jay of course not being able to be involved, and yeah, and then maybe doing the I Quit match inside Hell in a Cell again, but with Jimmy this time. I think that could have worked well, but I don't know what they're going to do here. Although a wild prediction I'm going to probably throw out there. I have a feeling that what they're going to do is they're going to have, even though it's in Hell in a Cell, I think they're going to have Jey Uso as the special guest referee. I would not do that, but I think that's what they're going to do. But what do you think about this entire thing, Carl?
I think the only reason Hell in a Cell has been moved to June is because the Horror Show or Extreme Rules suits better in October than it does in June. I think they just literally switch the pay-per-views around just to make it make more sense.
It's also because of the cage that a lot of fans have not been enjoying. They've been a lot of boos and stuff during Hell in a Cell shows in recent history because of the cage is hard to see. So that's why they want to get another one in the Thunderdome as well as that. And Extreme Rules, the horror show, like you said, would fit in perfectly. But yeah, that's why.
Yeah.
I don't know. I think it's far too soon for Jimmy and Roman to have a match because with Jay, it made sense because they had a match before and it was to keep Jimmy out so Jay would acknowledge him without the interference of Jimmy throwing in the towel. So that made sense. But I don't know. I can't see Jimmy versus Roman in Hell in a Cell because, like, although there's lots of story there, their family, you don't feel like they hate each other like the way Jay and Roman did. Like I don't get the same drive from Jay as I did Jimmy. Like you knew Jimmy wanted to be number one. I don't get that same drive with Jay because he just wants to be SmackDown champion and go away with his brother. So I think it's complete. I don't think that match will be in Hell in a Cell. I think For the Raw side, it'd be Lashley and Drew. For Hell in a Cell on the SmackDown side, I think it'd be Cesaro and Seth or Bailey and Bianca.
But yeah, no, I
Mm.
originally thought, but they seem to be doing Kofi versus Lashley on Raw. I consider Kofi
I think that would be that would be on a Monday Night Raw. To be honest, I think you'll just get a match on a random Raw, and Lashley will squash him and make Drew watch type of thing, and then they'll have Hell in a Cell to keep the New Day out and to keep MVP out, and then it just squash it that way.
Mm.
Because
Actually, that would
Kofi's
make perfect
currently
sense.
feuding with, and Kofi's currently feuding RK Bro, and it's not like WWE to have one character and two storylines going. So I think this is just a quick one and done.
Yeah, if that is the case, that makes perfect sense. But I have a feeling they'll be carrying this out a little bit longer, Kofi and Lashley. And if they went Kofi Lashley, that would make no sense to the cell, considering Kofi won outside of it. But if they do what you said, yeah, that makes sense. But Bailey Bianca, again, that wouldn't make much sense to me. I guess Rhea, Oscar, and without Charlotte being involved, but I don't particularly want to see that again. And I don't know.
It's just the biggest problem with WWE, though, isn't it? They're having these monthly pay-per-views named after stipulations. It doesn't work because stipulations require for the feud that it's in. You shouldn't have to have a Hell in a Cell just because it's named Hell in a Cell. Like Hell in a Cell and all stipulations should just be when the feud requires it. Like I think devalues the purpose of Hell in a Cell if you just have it out yearly.
I agree completely.
When I first started watching back in 2009, they had WrestleMania, then Backlash, then Judgment Day. I feel like this would have been a perfect opportunity to put Judgment Day.
Yeah, but I don't know. I agree completely. But even so, like in previous years, they have built up to the Hell in a Cell pay-per-view well, so it made sense. With Jey Uso and Roman last year, but this year there's nothing. There's absolutely nothing. So it just feels out of place. If they, wanted to give Hell in a Cell a miss for the year, or just done it, as a single event, maybe at another point, I think that would have been the correct move. And bring back I don't think Judgment Day would be used anymore, the name, but because they're having the main roster. That's the thing. War Games will not be allowed in the main roster as well anymore. That's what I'm seeing it. Because not only the match may be a bit violent, but it's the name as well. Hell Cell, I'm surprised that's actually still allowed with how sensitive they are to it. But I don't know. I don't know. They just should have brought back another pay-per-view, like you said. But that's basically it for this week, guys. We've been going an hour. NXT UK is going to be starting soon. So thank you for tuning in to everyone who's tuned in. We hope you enjoyed. We'll be back next week, same time, Thursday now. We've moved to Thursdays. Arsenal aren't going to be in Europa League next year. So unfortunately, I might have this conference league or something that's on. I don't know. But my Thursdays will be free. Carl, I think you're officially in Champions League now, aren't you?
Yeah. We moved to that big one. We didn't we actually made it to the big one this year. We weren't completely knocked out altogether. So yeah, no, it's good. It's good.
Oh gosh, right. This is my life nowadays, lads. Right. Thank you for watching, everybody, and we will see you again soon.